Hey, what's up everybody? Chrissy Histories here. Today I want to talk about the American Revolutionary War and how it didn't start out as a war for freedom against the English, and it was kind of a revolutionary war, a civil war, and a world war all in one. Cute! So, it all starts with the French and Indian War, which was like 20 years before that. And that had the French and Indians, or Native Americans, indigenous people, French and Indians, versus the British and her loyal subjects, the Americans. So how wild is that? Initially, we're on the British side in the French and Indian War, fighting against the French, who, during the Revolutionary War, are going to come to our side. Doesn't matter, war's stupid. But French and Indian War, we win. The Americans and the British, we win that war. George Washington himself was a colonel in the British Army during the French and Indian War and helped them win the war. So it's just all wild. The foreshadowing is like a bananas. But we fight that war for them as the 13 colonies. We fight them. And we helped the British win and retain her colonies and all this stuff that was going on in the French and Indian War. That's for another day. But we helped them win. But wars cost money, right? So England is like, yo, we have no money. Because, I mean, to win a war especially is like, who's going to spend the most money? That's usually what war is. Who spends the most money? So we win. And Britain says, okay, now we don't have any money. So what do? They're like, let's tax the people that helped us win the war. Let's tax our loyal subjects, the 13 colonies. And we're like, why though? We died for you and we bled for you, and now we have to pay more money for stamps. So the Stamp Act of 1765 was like an FU to us. I'm like, we just helped you win the war, WTF. But anyway, it starts to cause issues. So the first kind of ideas of a war against England start with that. It starts with taxation without representation. We're saying, hey, you're going to tax us on stamps and teas and all these other goods, but not let us be represented in Parliament in London? Like, what gives? So we start to get pissed off, and then we start to say, we're not going to pay for the stamps. We're burning things down. We start to F with the British soldiers in New York and Boston, the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, and it starts to piss people off. King George III was like, why are these guys mad? And it's like, are you stupid? And he kind of was. So we're like, listen, we're going to fight. We're going to start fighting you. We're going to start fighting you in 1775, but it's not about freedom. We don't want to be free from you. We're fighting you because we want to have legal representation in Parliament if you're going to tax us for teas and stamps and all that other bullshit. So we start to fight. We start getting our asses handed to us bad. I mean, we're losing. Britain at that time was the biggest, fiercest fighting force, in the whole world. So we're getting our asses handed to us. I mean, we're the 13 colonies. We're not the mighty United States here. We're just 13 colonies that we don't even have shoes. I mean, we're farmers with pitchforks trying to pick up muskets we barely know how to use to fight the most formidable fighting force in the world at the time. So we're getting our asses handed to us. And then towards, the spring of 1776, the soldiers are like putting their guns down on the American side. And George Washington is like, hey, we need to fight. And we're like, no. They're like, yo, you go fight, bro. Like, my farm is being ransacked. Who knows what happened to my wife and kids? Everybody's dying. I got no shoes on. My feet are bleeding. And we're losing this freaking war. So the founding fathers at the time come up with an idea. That's where the American ingenuity, I mean, it's great. They come up with an idea and they say George Washington and Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and Alex Hamilton. Well, Alexander Hamilton wasn't even a big deal yet. He was just a regular soldier, but he still probably had something to do with it because, I mean, the play Hamilton is the best. But they start to say, okay, how can we get these soldiers to stay and not put down their guns? I got it. Independence. Let's come up with the idea of independence from England, not just taxation without representation. That's minor. Let's go major. Declaration of Independence. So they get Thomas Paine to create this pamphlet called Common Sense. Thomas Paine was a great orator. Thomas Paine was like, he could just sling lyrics. He was like the Kanye West of the time. He could just get people to move. He was slanging these lyrics, doing a great job. So Thomas Paine comes up with Common Sense, and the pamphlet goes through the 13 colonies saying we need freedom from this mighty tyranny government of Britain. And so it starts to ignite the colonists, right? The colonists say, yes, we're gonna get back in. The army start to triple and quadruple after Common Sense because like freedom from England, yeah. So as the years go on, I mean, we're doing okay, but because we got more soldiers, but we're still getting our fucking asses handed to us. Until the Battle of Saratoga. In the Battle of Saratoga, which is widely known as the turning point of the war, we get a real nice decisive victory against the British. And that makes France, Britain's mortal enemy, on the sideline. Even though we fought against them 20 years ago in the French and Indian War, it makes France say, you know what? I kind of like these little colonists, so we're going to join. And France sends pretty much their entire army. And Spain, also Britain's mortal enemy, sends money. So Spain sending money on the low. They're like, you know what? We're not going to send our soldiers, but we're going to send you guys some cash. So they start to, we're from Spain. So they send money. France sends their army, which France is an unbelievable fighting force too. You got to understand, at that time in the 1700s, we didn't even have a navy. The Americans did not have a navy. Britain has the most powerful navy in the whole world. So France sends their navy, which is like, thank you. So we start to fight them, and then the tide of the war starts to turn. So it's also a civil war, though, as I mentioned, because a lot of people were called loyalists back then, and they were loyal to the British crown. They did not want to necessarily fight against England because they were like, England wasn't really that bad to us. So you had a lot of people in their own families. You would have one brother, a Revolutionary War soldier fighting with the 13 colonies and the Continental Army, and the other brother, loyalist, putting on a dirty red coat and fighting with the British enemy. So it's like a civil war, and you're like, bro, what the fuck? So we start winning. Once France joins, we start winning, right? And there's so many times during this revolution where we really almost lost. I mean, thank God for the weather. Jesus Christ himself, I know for a fact he's an American kid and he bleeds red, white, and blue, because the war was almost all but lost at the Battle of Brooklyn in August of 1776, because we had our whole army pinned. George Washington and we had the army pinned, and we're like, yo, bro, we're going to die. We're going to surrender. But then a mighty fog rolls in. The British were going to come and advance on us the next morning, right? Because they had us pinned in this hamlet, right? And we had our backs against the wall, backs against the water. And we thought we were going to lose. And so this mighty fog rolls in, and George Washington says, you know what? Let's get our whole army on these boats that are trapped and sail them across the water underneath the guise of this fog, and the British will never know. And lo and behold, the British go to storm the next morning. There's 2 colonial soldiers there. It's like, yeah, take me, dickhead. The rest of the army got across the water. They were up into Harlem, and they escaped to live another day. Because the thing with George Washington is he really wasn't the greatest military tactician, even though, listen, he's my boy. Memorial Day, I love you, George Washington. Thank you for saving this country. But you weren't really that great as a military tactician. What he was very, very, very good at is he knew what all the people said about him, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, all those guys, what they said about George Washington is he had the ability to say, you know what, I'm not going to win. He knew that he wasn't going to win. He could see, this is exact quote from Benjamin Franklin. This is something you could take for your own life. He said the greatest thing about George Washington is he was able to see things as they were, not as he wishes they were. So that's a little life advice. You can apply that to anything. And especially in military battles, it's like George Washington knew, I'm not going to sit and fight the British who are going to kill us in Brooklyn. I know that we're going to lose. So let me get these ships across the water and get to safety. So boom, saved. So as time goes on, we start to really win, because that colonial American spirit, we start to really win. And then eventually, of course, we beat the British. We make them surrender at Yorktown, down in the South. In 1781, because, it was really France that really, kind of helped us with they taught our military what to do. That's why when people we hate France, it's like, why? They gave us a country. Thank you, France. Like, shout out baguettes, shout out Pink Panther, like whatever, like shout out France. Thank you. So they helped us win the war by sending all their troops to us. And, of course, the Marquis de Lafayette, who was a 21-year-old soldier, and Rochambeau, Rambachat, I don't know how to say his name. He was a great military leader that taught George Washington kind of a lot of military tactics, and all our people military tactics. And it was so, so it really goes beyond just America versus Britain, though, because it is a world war. I mean, Spain sent money. France joined us. We fought against England. The Netherlands joined, and they had all these repercussions as time went on. It was kind of like really the First World War, our first Civil War, and of course, the Revolution. I mean, every country got involved pretty much in the Revolutionary War, except China, because God knows what China was doing. They were probably making viruses and putting them in bats when they could have been helping us. But yeah, I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but listen, I'm 9 minutes in, so I can't go back now, so I'm just going to post it.